Hello and welcome to another video, and today I'm going to give you my 10 reasons why you're not getting any bigger. Number 1, you shower in your clothes. Number 2, you live in a box and eat nothing but dry Weetabix and toothpaste. Number 3, you only train one half of your body because you refuse to work out unless you're holding a cucumber. Number 4, What? No. Let me do a few more at least. Number 6 is quality. Fine, I'll do the real list. Just like the video and subscribe, please. Okay, we're in. I'm going to be serious now, I promise. Although, eating dry Weetabix and toothpaste wasn't actually that bad. So the plan is I'm going to give you my 10 reasons why you are not getting any bigger. So if you feel like you train pretty consistently, but you're not building any muscle, like you look at yourself and you think, do you know what, I look the same as I did like a few weeks or a few months ago, then one or maybe a few of these reasons could be the explanation for that. So I'll run you through my 10 reasons and I'll provide a fix for each one. Bear in mind that some of them are going to be more common, more likely to be the cause than others, but I'm going to put them in no particular order. They are basically random because I figured like if I put the most common 3 as numbers 1, 2 and 3, you might watch that and just stack the video off. You know, a bit like I watched the trailer for the Meg the other day and I was like, that's definitely all the best bits of the film you've just showed me, plus I know the exact plot now, probably not going to watch it. Right, here we go. And in number 1 is going to be impatience, or I guess more specifically unrealistic expectations. And this is so common. I hear it, I see it all the time, and that is that people expect progress to happen far quicker than it actually can. You know, like obviously it depends on how long you've been training for. Like beginners can make progress, can build muscle a lot faster than someone that's been training for say 5 years, but either way it's going to take time, especially to build muscle. Like you can build strength, you can train your CNS relatively quickly, so you can see progress, particularly for a beginner, very quickly in that sense. But in terms of building muscle, in terms of literally looking in the mirror and seeing more mass, seeing more size, more definition, more tone, whatever, than you have done previously, that's going to take time. So if you're looking at yourself every single day and being disappointed you're not getting bigger, just take a step back. You know, take pictures of yourself maybe, and if after say 2 months or 3 months you've made no progress in terms of muscle growth, then you can start questioning things. You know, but if you're talking about a few days or a week or even 2 weeks, then it's not realistic to expect to have built muscle in such a short time frame. Number 2 is going to be poor resistance selection. So basically not lifting the right weight. Right, now this can go 2 ways. Probably more common is that people are lifting too heavy, so like maybe they're training with their friends, like peer pressure, or they're trying to impress someone or whatever it is, but I see it quite a lot, and that is like, particularly a lot of beginners, they're lifting a weight that is quite clearly too heavy for them. Now the problem with that, well, there's 2 problems with this, right? Firstly, if you're lifting a weight that's too heavy for you to properly control it, it means your technique, your form is going to be terrible, and therefore you're not going to be engaging muscles correctly, you're not going to get the results you want, and secondly, as a result of that, you're going to be far more susceptible to injury, right? And obviously if you're injured, you can't train, you can't make any progress. Now, going the other way, this is less common, but I still see it sometimes, and that is people lifting a weight that is quite clearly too low. You know, I think sometimes people get so obsessed with having their perfect form, having technique exactly as it should be, that the weight is nowhere near heavy enough to elicit a response. Now, ultimately, for your body to grow, for your body to adapt and get bigger, it needs to be properly stressed. The stimulus needs to be adequate, you know, and if you're lifting a weight that you finish your set and you've got 10 more reps left in the tank, that obviously is not going to be heavy enough for you to make progress. So what I would suggest to fix this is working, do most of your sets at an RPE 8 to 9. That basically means having 1 or 2 reps left in the tank. So if you're doing an exercise for say 4 sets, your first 3 sets want to be around an RPE 8 or 9. So basically each time you've got 1, maybe 2 reps left in the tank, and then your last set you can go for an RPE 10. So basically you finish and you have no more reps there. Number 3 is that you are under eating. Now this is probably the most common, the most likely reason for your lack of progress. Simply put, you're not eating enough food. Now there are normally 2 reasons for this. Firstly, that people are scared of getting fat, and secondly that they're misinformed, right? So some expert from the gym, normally called like Barry or Graham, who's like 85 years old, has told you that unless you eat chicken and broccoli, you can't build any muscle. Now, that isn't true for a start. Graham and Barry are wrong. Secondly, like, you need enough calories to build muscle, right? And I'm going to try and make this really simple. Like, building muscle is work for your body. Like, your body doesn't want to do that. Your body would rather stay as it would, rather kind of maintain equilibrium, stay at a level that's nice and easy to maintain. Building muscle is hard work. It makes your body come out of its comfort zone. It doesn't want to do it. In order to kind of force your body to build muscle, you've got to do 2 things. First, you've got to give it a stimulus to do that. The stimulus is going to be training, right? Lifting weights. And then secondly, you have to give it fuel. You have to give it energy, the resources to build the muscle. And that comes from your food, right? So if you're not eating enough food, then your body can't build muscle. It's physically impossible, right? So what I would suggest as a fix for this is that you weigh yourself like multiple times throughout the week. Keep your weigh-ins consistent in terms of the environment and the settings and stuff. If each week you are not gaining any weight, you need to eat more food, right? Keep eating more food, keep increasing your food intake until you get to a point where you are gaining a small amount of weight each week, possibly around half a pound or so. Like, it's gonna be quite slow, you have to be quite patient. Now, if you're really skinny or you're a complete beginner, this weight increase might be a bit faster. And if you've been training for say 5-10 years, the weight increase is gonna be a bit slower. But either way, you wanna be gaining a small increment of weight each week alongside your training in the gym. Number 4 is that your body fat is concealing your results, right? So basically, you are building muscle, you just can't see it. Now, you need to understand that when we talk about building muscle like hypertrophy, it's not necessarily always going to be visible. Firstly, because it happens very slowly, and secondly, that if you have a reasonable, even like an average amount of body fat on your body, it's not going to be clear until it's happened for a long period of time. So what I would suggest is basically don't worry about it, right? If you are doing what I said in the last thing, so your body weight is increasing slowly each week, your numbers are going up in the gym, you're feeling stronger, your diet, is high in protein, then it's almost certain that you are building muscle. So what you've got to do is just continue doing what you're doing, and then when you got to a point where you're happy with the amount of muscle that you've gained, you can cut down so you can lose a bit of body fat, and at that point you're going to reveal all the results that you've worked hard to achieve. Number 5 is that you are not progressively overloading your training. Now, this is up there with the under eating one as being the most common causes for a lack of progress, but basically progressively overloading your training means making it harder in some way over a period of time. Now, you can do this by increasing the weight, by reducing the recovery, by increasing the reps or the sets you're doing, but you have to make your training harder in some way over a period of time, otherwise your body's not going to adapt. Like I said earlier, to build muscle, your body needs that stimulus. If you keep doing the same thing, it's not getting the stimulus. Now, I see it all the time, particularly I'm going to say like with older lifters, but I've had a guy come up to me and ask how to improve his bench press, and when I asked him what he was doing, he'd say, on a Monday I do bench press, I do 100 kilos for 8 reps, then I do 105 kilos, and he recited his exact session. He does it every single time down to the exact same rep. Obviously, if you're doing that, you're giving your body the exact same stimulus. After a few weeks, it can already do it. If anything, it's actually going to start regressing because it can already do that. It can already handle that volume of work. So why is it going to progress? It doesn't need to progress. So as a fix for this, like I said, make your training harder over a period of time. Maybe each week you're going to add a couple of reps to your set. So let's look at let's look at bench press as an example, right? If in week 1 you do 5 sets of 5 at 100 kilos, the following week you're going to do 5 sets of 5, but the last couple of sets you're going to do sets of 6, right, at that same weight. The next week you're going to do 5 sets of 6. The following week, you're going to increase the weight to 102.5 kilos and you're going to reset and go again. And as long as you keep doing that and you keep making those incremental improvements in terms of weight or in terms of training volume as a whole, then your body's going to progress and you're going to build muscle. Number 6 is that you're not tracking your training volume or following any kind of structured training program. Now, this kind of leads on from the last example I gave you, whereby that guy was doing exactly the same thing every week. I think ironically, some people tend to go the other way. So they rock up at the gym with their friends and just kind of do any old session. Like they think, oh, that's fun, I'll do that. This feels good, I'll do that. Like without any kind of idea of what they've done previously. That's obviously not going to work, and neither is the other example. You need to be somewhere in the middle of those two things. So you need to be consistent enough that you can monitor your volume and increase it, but at the same time, don't just do the same thing every single week. Now, in terms of following a training program, it doesn't need to be ridiculously intricate. Just have a loose idea of what body part you're training on what day, and how much volume you're going to accumulate for each body part. And then moving on, in terms of tracking your volume, that is absolutely key. So where I said about in the last example about progressively overloading, so making your training harder each week, you can't do that unless you track your volume. It's so common for people to go and train and just kind of make things up on the spot, not have any idea of what they've done previously for that lift. If you write down the number of reps and the number of sets and the weight you lifted for each exercise, the following week you can make sure you beat it in some way. But if you don't track that, if you don't record it, then there's no way progressive overload can take place, and there's no way you can make progress. Number 7 is that you have a poor mind-muscle connection. Now, your mind-muscle connection is basically your ability to properly contract, properly engage a particular muscle, and this is really important for making long-term progress, for building muscle over a sustained period of time. Now, the mistake a lot of people make is that they go to the gym and they do a particular exercise. So for example, they pick up a dumbbell and do a bicep curl, and they say, right, I'm doing a bicep curl with a dumbbell, therefore my bicep's going to grow. I can chat to my friend, but I'm doing these curls, it's just going to keep growing. Now, that is true to an extent. Obviously, your bicep flexes your elbow. If you do that, it is going to, put pressure on it. It is going to grow, but there is a whole new level of progress you can unlock just by properly thinking about engaging a muscle. So if you're doing an arm curl, for example, and you think about it, you properly focus on engaging and contracting your bicep as hard as you can, particularly the top of the movement, the progress you're gonna make is gonna be significantly better than if you just bang out a set without really thinking about it. Using myself as an example, going back to when I first started lifting, I found my lats in particular really hard to engage. So I'd do things like lat pull downs and rows, but I wouldn't really feel like my lats were doing much. I felt like it was all in my biceps. As soon as I learned to properly set up and retract my scapula and really focus my mind on engaging my lats, I got 10 times better at it, and my lats started to grow and my progress went through the roof. Number 8 is that you are not getting an adequate amount of sleep each night. Now, although this is less likely to be a cause for your lack of progress, it's definitely still worth consideration, because if you're not making progress in the gym and you're getting like 4 hours sleep a night, that's probably some kind of correlation there. Like, 2 reasons behind this. Firstly, research has shown that if you don't get an adequate amount of sleep, so I'm talking like 7-8 hours a night, then firstly your body's ability to recover is going to be impeded, and therefore your ability to build muscle is going to be impeded, and secondly your body's ability to function is going to be impeded. So if you can't function properly, you can't train properly, you can't train to a high level, you can't get that mind-muscle connection that I was talking about earlier, and that's also obviously going to have an effect on the results. Number 9 is going to be a high training age. So essentially, the longer you've been training for, the harder it's going to be to make progress, right? Progress is going to happen, but it's going to happen much slower, so you need to be prepared for that. So if you have been, like I just said, training for say 5-10 years even, then you can't expect to make progress at the same rate as you did when you were a beginner. To use myself as an example, when I first started squatting, my squat went from like 160 to about 220 in about a year, I think. From 220 to 260 took like 4 years, right? Because like I said, the longer you lift for, the harder it is to make that progress. So the more those little kind of incremental changes and things like sleep and diet that I talked about earlier, the more important those things become. So it's just important, like I said, going right back to the beginning of this, to have those realistic expectations. Bear in mind that the longer you train for, the slower your progress is going to be. So don't expect to look in the mirror and see changes like you did when you first started training, because that's not going to happen. And the 10th and final reason that you're not getting any bigger is that you are doing too many exercises, or essentially you're overtraining. Now, although this is less common to be the reason for your lack of progress, because basically it's very rare for someone to truly overtrain, it still happens sometimes, I still see it sometimes, and that is that someone will go into the gym, they'll be training their chest, and they'll do like 8, 9, maybe even 10 exercises for their chest. Now, this is not going to be optimal for a number of reasons. Now, although recent research has shown that we don't truly know exactly where the optimal point is as far as volume goes, in a week for a body part, we can estimate where it is, and 10 exercises is clearly going to be above that. It's clearly going to be too much. Even if somehow you're a superhuman and you can handle, you can sustain that amount of volume, how do you progress it? Going back to progressive overload that I talked about earlier on, if you do 10 exercises for a body part, after a few weeks you get used to that, you're going to plateau, you're then going to have to increase it to 11 exercises, 12, 13. You're going to find yourself in the gym for like 8 hours a day, which obviously is not going to be sustainable. On top of that, you're going to be more susceptible to injury, because the more fatigued you get, you keep doing volume on top of that, like I said, you're going to get injured. If you get injured, you obviously can't train, you can't make progress. And finally, if you do that many exercises, the quality of the exercise is going to suck towards the end of the session. Like if you've done 3 or 4 exercises for your chest, and that exercise number 5, number 6, number 7, the quality is going to diminish. You're going to be getting very little from that, and you're going to get to the point where it crosses over and actually does more harm than good. So what I would suggest, and this is obviously going to vary from person to person depending on your training age and things like that, is that maybe you do something like 3 to 4 exercises per body part per session. Now, you could possibly do this once or twice a week, again depending on your training experience, but the key thing, like I said earlier, is that progressive overload. So if you are new to the gym, don't jump straight into 4 exercises. Start with 1 or 2 and progress it from there. You want to make progress on the smallest amount of volume possible, and that's going to give you the most sustainable progress over a longer period of time. And that is where I'm going to end the video, because firstly, I'm bored of talking. Secondly, I need to go outside and clear up all the Weetabix and toothpaste from my back garden. And thirdly, I need to go and explain to my gym owner why I was caught on CCTV earlier on waving an enormous cucumber around in his free weights room like some kind of vegetable fetish pervert. So I sincerely hope you enjoyed the video, guys. If you have enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. Like I said at the start, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I will see you tomorrow.